Have you been getting the tug or the thought of maybe making a move? Well, if you have, we've got a seller's Q&A that we're going to share with you right now. My name's Tina Dameron, and I'm the owner-founder of Dwell Well Realty. And just sit back and enjoy the panel of experts, realtors in my office, share with you lessons they've learned. We gathered a bunch of questions from our clients and are happy to share all the answers and the questions with you now.
San Diego. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out.
And Bree.
Hello, I'm Bree. I've been with Well for almost a year now, and I'm going to be doing kind of like the technical side of things and bringing up questions towards the end of things, but I'm happy to be on the call.
Happy to have you. And Kara.
Hi there. Carolina Houston. I have been with Wawa as a real estate agent for almost 3 years. First, I was intern in college, then I was client, and now I've been an agent with them.
Nima, next up.
Hi there, Nima Gahari, and I am originally from Dayton, Ohio, moved here 12 years ago, immediately started in real estate, and have been with Dwell Well for the past 3 years.
And finally, Elisa.
Hi, I'm Elisa Edwards, and I am a broker associate here at Dwell Well Realty. I like to say I cut my teeth here. I started fresh with Tina selling real estate 16 years ago.
So there you have our panel of experts. We may have one more joining us, but he hasn't joined in yet, but we will introduce him if he does join. So what we've done as how we're going to run this Q&A is we have a list of questions that we've gathered from our clients and friends and other agents that we've put together. So we've got a long list of questions that we're just going to go through and answer. So if you have an additional question, definitely put it in the chat box. Bree will handle it and then hand it off to the panel to make sure that we can answer all of your questions. If you think you have something that we haven't touched on yet, we do have a list of the topics, so maybe wait until the end because we may touch on your question. But we want to make sure that you get every bit of info that you can out of us during this happy hour. So take it away, Bree. So let's start off with the discussion topics. These are all the different topics we're going to touch on. How's the market? We hear that every day, multiple times a day. How to stay safe. That's definitely something that's top of mind, not only in real estate, but definitely everywhere you go. Escrow and contracts. There have been some changes that protect everyone in our transactions. How to market a home. We want to share with you, if you're curious, how we market homes in the time of COVID, because it is different. And rentals and investors. We have lots of people in this marketplace that are interested in buying, selling, and moving into the investment market, and we want to answer questions about that as well. So let's dive in. So first up, how's the market? And one of our top questions that we get a lot of is it a good time to sell or should I wait until COVID-19 ends? Elisa is going to take a lot of these economics questions.
So it is a good question. So really, we want to be specific to your neighborhood because things are performing differently in different parts of San Diego. So I'm going to give you kind of a global answer, and then if you have specific questions, please reach out to us and we'll follow back up with the specifics on your price point and your neighborhood. So I'm kind of going to answer these questions generally. So the economic experts have been watching the economy here very closely since the pandemic started, and there were a lot of predictions that the economy was going to kind of hit bottom and then have a very slow recovery. Real estate has kind of taken a turn and is performing better than the economy in general, and this is a great snapshot of the V-style recovery that real estate is experiencing. So if you look at the blue line, that is representing 2020 pending sales, and this is over the last 30 days. So this is entirely during the pandemic. And you can see that we hit bottom basically pretty quickly after things started shutting down. And now we're bouncing back very quickly, and it's showing in the amount of activity that we're experiencing in the market. So is it a good time to sell? Yes, definitely a good time to sell. And we'll get you some specifics on your neighborhood and make sure that it's kind of following that same trend. So the next question, I don't know, Bree, if you want to jump back to the question screen. Are home prices going down? I would say very little, very little. We're not seeing a lot of price adjustments. And I'll say that's under 1.5 million. So if you're looking at homes or considering selling a home above that price point, then let's talk specifics and get down to the nitty-gritty data on your neighborhood. Is the market still competitive? It's greatly competitive. So with regard to being competitive, yes, home sellers are seeing multiple offers on properties that they've listed, and even some of those homes were on the market prior to the pandemic happening, and maybe something happened with the buyer's financing, or for some reason it ended up back on the market within the last 60 days. And actually we were able to get a higher offer for them, or a more secure buyer. So it's definitely competitive, and we've got multiple offer situations trending in lots of neighborhoods in San Diego. And question 4, are buyers still out there, or are they waiting out the effects of the pandemic? Kind of goes into what I was saying before, that we've got multiple offers. Buyers are definitely buying. They're seeing opportunities. Mainly in that we have maybe less buyers in the market, but less inventory available. So they're wanting to get a jump on things, and they're really not showing much fear of things going wrong in the real estate market, which is great for you sellers. It's really in most price points, we're still in very much a seller's market. As we get higher up in the price points, it neutralizes a bit, so the negotiations are more fair, but definitely leaning heavily towards the seller's market still in most cases.
Before we take the next question, I see Miguel, you've joined us. Can you just give a quick hi and a little bit of your background?
Yeah, sorry for being late. I had some technical difficulties. My name is Miguel Contreras. I've been in the industry 17 years, with a broad experience in the industry. I focus a lot on probates, divorce sales, and multifamily as well. And been through the Great Recession, and looking forward to what this economy brings as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Miguel. So question number 5, we were kicking this one to Nima. Will it take longer to sell my home in this market?
Yes, and definitely Elisa did a great job of setting me up for this question and the next one, because she's right on with the information she presented. So when you ask for the theoretical answer behind this, will it take longer to sell the home in the market, I arrived to an answer no. And the caveat is the luxury market. I mean, everything we're hearing and experiencing, the data is saying that the luxury market, and not to say that it's different from any other market, or I should say without a market without COVID's impact, there's just less qualified buyers for that pool, or for that pool of sellers, I should say. So, when you take a look at the metrics of inventory staying very low, dangerously low, I would say, and pending sales dropping but recovering, and then closed sales following suit, it does not seem like there's any data to support that it's going to take longer. And in fact, all the market conditions are setting up for it to probably beat where we were in 2019. And a lot of the data I saw comparing April 2019 to April of 2020 houses are selling for, uh, uh, they're staying on the market a lot lower than we would expect, and in comparison. So moving to question 6 of whether we think that the market will drop soon because of COVID-19 and the unemployment rate. You know, again, this is something that's my opinion, and taking stock of where the market is right now and how the unemployment rate has affected our market. It's, you know, as opposed to Elisa's answer where, you know, right now we are not seeing prices go down. I, from the outset, always thought that prices would go down. You know, we were all paralyzed, for lack of a better term, by the COVID pandemic, and we thought it would lead to a stagnant market, properties staying on the market a lot longer. We heard about tightening restrictions by banks, and you know, whether there'd be qualified buyers for these homes, and it just hasn't happened. I mean, multiple stories of multiple offers. So it seems like the market has, from about mid-April to where we are now, has come back pretty vigorous to get us to a point where we're going to see the same type of production, or I should say the same type of prices that we're seeing right now. Again, very abstract, theoretical answer with really just a gut feeling, because you know, we don't know. You know, there's even political effects that could happen over the next 6 months that could turn things around, you know, with what's happening in the stock market, and if there's more stimulus coming out, how that affects rates, et cetera. So sorry for the disorganized answer to that, but if anybody feels differently, please jump in and save me.
Well, you mentioned one of the reasons why the market has remained so strong, and it's because of interest rates being at an unprecedented low rate. Buyers' buying power has increased because of the rates being as low as they are, if you have a full-time job with a W-2. And that kicks us to the other question, the next question, which really, Miguel, if you take this one, we hear this a lot. How long will rates stay this low? We know that that's a crystal ball, but if you've got an opinion, Miguel, I'd love for you to weigh in on it.
Wow. Well, I do wish I had a crystal ball. I'd be a lot wealthier than I am. But interest rates, for all intents and purposes, it looks as if the Fed's really going to try their best to keep the rates really low. You know, not getting political here, but it is an election year as well. So, you know, if you follow the history of election years, you know, sitting presidents don't really want a volatile interest rate market as well. So that's another variable and factor that's not really talked about. But for the foreseeable future, with 33 million plus unemployed, you know, the government's really going to try to stimulate the economy with keeping the money out there in all forms, right? So it's going to be either in stimulus packages, the PPP for businesses and employers, but also with financing, and the rates for the foreseeable future will be low. There are a couple of other variables that might affect that, and that's how banks, or at least originating lenders, when they try to package their loan and sell it on the secondary market, there aren't many secondary buyers right now. So because they're just very tentative, because they're waiting to see what the economy is going to do once things open up. So I know that lenders are having a tough time packaging up their loans and reselling them. Hence, the rates have been impacted a bit for a few weeks. If you remember, they went up, they shot up about a half a point. And that really impacts the demand, because it really cuts into buyers and investors' purchasing power. So that's something to be vigilant of. But if we look at a historical graph, the rates are extremely low. The money is cheap. And in expensive markets like San Diego, we're very rate sensitive. So if as soon as the rates dip a little bit, the activity increases tremendously, and it has the inverse effect. As soon as the rates increase just a quarter of a point, or even half a point, our activity is diminished. And I'll go back to the end of 2008, beginning of 2019. 2018, the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, the rates went up to about 4.5%, 5% at a certain point, and the volume completely stopped. I don't know if you all recall that, but it was a little scary for me. It was reminiscent of situation and circumstances of 2008. So I panicked a little bit. I thought, oh my God, here we go again. But then the Fed quickly adjusted at the end of February, early March of 2019. The rates subsequently went down, and the volume just shot up, and we were in a trajectory of an upward trajectory up until the pandemic began, and we were shut down for about 10 days at the middle of March, and then things slowed down. And as soon as we were back on the essential list, then things just skyrocketed again. So, and that's a lot to do with diminished inventory. There's a scarcity of inventory, and that's keeping the values where they are. I hope I answered that.
The next question, Miguel, is also going to be yours, but and this one's very generic, but I want you to give a couple of examples, and it's, what's the market like where my home is, and how was it impacted? And you and I know, have had quite a bit of discussions about price point strategies or price point strata, and how COVID may affect those different price points. But I think it also affects, it's just definitely hot where you are. South Bay has just been out of control. So if you could talk a little bit about different markets and how the market is in those different markets, just briefly, would be great.
Yeah, well, I live in Bonita. As it is in Bonita, there's very limited inventory normally. Now there's even less. So there might be 9 houses on the market in Bonita. But South Bay in general, I know Donald has a few listings in the South Bay. As soon as they go up on the market, we've got buyers ready to see them within minutes, and offers within days if we're priced correctly. A little bit of what we're seeing, pardon my French, but there are a lot of dogs on the property as well. So not a lot of pretty inventory either. It's expensive, and a lot of the inventory is not well maintained, but it is what it is. That's what's available. And because there's such a demand demographically, the price points tend to be a little lower compared to say North County. You're going to get about a 10 to 20% discount depending on the neighborhood. It makes it more affordable. Some of the master plan communities compare very well with, say, the Powways and the Scripps Ranches of the world. Typically, those are the same builders that built those communities, so you might get the same layout for 10 to 20% less. The schools compare relatively well also. So South Bay's the market's on fire. People really want to buy, and there's a massive need for housing. So we have a massive housing shortage. San Diego in general, and the South County is really feeling that impact of the scarcity of supply, and there's just so much demand. And we have demographically, we have to look at, we have a lot of Navy active duty military contractors that live in the South Bay due to proximity to bases, the 32nd Naval Station, Coronado as well. So they want to live a little closer to work. So the South Bay, the geopositioning of the South Bay is ideal. We have a lot of law enforcement, Border Patrol, federal agents that live down here. There's a lot of facilities down here that house those types of jobs. So it's an interesting market, to say the least.
And Caro, you just did 2 listings in Metro, Mid-City, and they both sold twice.
Yes, it was an interesting experience, but they both fell off and then went right back into escrow literally that very weekend. So definitely not slowing down anywhere in that area either.
And pricing actually on one of your sales was higher, right?
Yes, we ended up with a higher price than with the first escrow. So it ended up working out really well for my clients.
And the second escrows both were initiated after the COVID shutdown.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
During the pandemic.
And I just wanted to make sure, Miguel, your point was understood, that when you were talking about a 10 to 20% discount, you meant the geographic discount.
Geographic discount, yes. Definitely not. This is not a market where buyers are going to go. If a property's priced at 620, you're not going to offer 20% less. We are nowhere near that at all. What I meant to say is, if you were to compare the same house built by the same builder in, say, Eastlake and then Poway or Scripps Ranch, you're going to purchase it probably for 10 to 20% less. But no. And for our sellers that are watching this, and maybe some buyers, this is not a buyer's market. This is not a buyer's market where you can just wheel and deal. That's just not going to happen at all. And to Gatto's point, I do want to add too, and I think Donald can attest to this too. What we are seeing is canceled escrows too. So we get them into escrow quick, and they fall out of escrow quickly, and then we get them right back into escrow. And a lot of that has to do with financing on the buyer's part, and maybe cold feet too. But that's not to say that we're not closing deals. We are closing deals, but there are some double or a second go around of escrows typically in this market.
And
I have one more thing to add. Oddly, I'm also seeing a lot of 21-day escrows by the lenders. So some of the buyers' financing isn't very solid, and it does fall out of escrow. But then other buyers, because they're still in the market during the pandemic, they're very solid buyers, and their financing is really in place. So they're able to close in 21 days, which is what I saw with my most recent second go around with my clients.
And I'll just share a different market completely from either the ones that you guys were talking about, and that's downtown. I've got 2 listings downtown. One went on the market. I'd had it on the market before, very little activity, put it back on the market during COVID. One showing, full price offer, 21-day close. So I'm not saying that downtown is as healthy as other markets, because it isn't necessarily, but it's a pretty strong market out there. So that's just another little data point on the San Diego map. But if you're curious about where your home is, we do have specific demographic data and market data on every neighborhood, every zip code that we are happy to share.
Tina, the percentage of pending homes that increased over the last 2 weeks was 37%. So that is just telling every seller that's considering listing that there's that many more properties selling the last 2 weeks over the previous 2 weeks. So it's really heating up quickly.
Okay, so another spot out there that people have kind of been a little curious if it's even active, because in the beginning of this COVID it wasn't, and that's new construction. Can you still tour new construction, Donald?
So great question. Yes, you can. And new construction is going quickly. So I currently have 3 different clients that are purchasing new construction right now, ranging from South Bay, Otay Ranch to Mission Valley. They do have strict showing requirements, however. A lot of them are by appointment only. Definitely reach out to your agent before scheduling an appointment with new construction. They could definitely help you out with that. There is a document, it's called the P document, that we're gonna get into a little later. Basically instructions on safety protocols when viewing properties. Your agent can get you that document signed via DocuSign and shoot that over to the showing agents at the new construction site when they book an appointment for you. It's also good to have your agent go with you so that they can give you a second opinion. If you have any additional questions that you might not be comfortable asking the listing agent there, that you can talk to your agent about, and they can kind of help you ask those kinds of questions. The majority of the time, they will only let 2 people in to see the property at a time, unless there are more people that are from the same household. the majority of the time, the listing agent will go in with you. They will open all the doors, any cabinets, fridges, just so that they're the ones touching everything and you don't have to. Always remember to bring your mask. They will not let you tour without a mask. If that's the one big thing to remember, is definitely bring your mask. And the good news is a lot of them are still on their construction timelines. They're all still on time. Of course, that's weather permitting. But even during COVID, what I've seen is that a lot of them still have the same closing dates as they did a couple of months ago. Every time we go to tour, there's still people working and really getting the job done. And every time we go, there's 3 more that's off the market that people have put deposits on. So definitely new construction is still a really good option. They're going fast. Contact your agent to see if there's new construction in areas that you're looking at. And we'd, love to show you some new properties.
Thank you. Okay. So the next topic we're going to cover is how to stay safe. We had a lot of questions, and certainly that's not surprising. How do you stay safe? How do you sell a home? How do we show homes now? And so I'm going to kick this topic off to Nima first. Is it safe for buyers to come through my home?
Yeah, and I think this is a question that really we can't answer for anybody, any seller out there. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, how do you feel about people coming through your home? Do you have children? Do you, and even without considering the COVID protocols that are in place and the safety, do you have the time and the resources to, have to be able to prepare the home for showings and keep the place clean in order for them to come in and so you're serving yourself the best way. It's a lot of work to prepare a home, especially with 3 kids. Fresh in my mind because I do have a client that both husband and wife are working from home and they have 3 young children under 7. So it's a big question for them. And I think you need to just evaluate your own situation. What is your risk tolerance? If what your agent, and I can tell you that Dwell Well Realty, we really, Tina set up great standards for us, and we can promise our clients that we're going to take every precaution that we possibly can. So I know Carol's going to get into more of the specifics, but I would say that if you're working with us, that you will be safe and you will be serving yourself well by putting it on the market and taking advantage of the low inventory right now.
Thanks, Nima. Carol, I think you've got the next 3 questions, don't you? How do I prep my home? How do I prep my home? And take it away.
Okay, so there's a bunch of guidelines that were released, and I'm going to caveat everything with they seem to be changing periodically. At first, they were changing very often, but now we seem to have come into kind of a stride that we know what to expect, and the California Association of Realtors has given us some pretty clear guidelines. Bree, I think this one's for the next question, but it's okay if you leave it up because it's helpful to show. Oh, go back to that one. Yeah, it's helpful to show people a little bit of a visual. So before a showing, there's a couple of things that need to get done. So I'm going to talk to you about a vacant home, and then we'll talk about an occupied home, owner occupied. So for vacant homes, I'm just encouraging all my clients to give it a deep clean and disinfect before you even go live, just to have a clean slate before new people come in. But the guidelines are saying that before and after each showing, we must turn on all the lights, open all interior doors, visualize it as you're trying to make it easy for any person touring your home to not need to touch anything. they're not supposed to touch anything, but if the door is closed, they're going to need to open it. So turn on all the lights, open all interior doors, open the window so there's fresh air coming through, and then wipe down surfaces. Think about things people usually touch easy, right? Like doorknobs, light switches, things like that. And then we need to make sure there's available, I'm just gonna call it PPE, but basically hand soap, hand sanitizer, wipes, booties, face mask, all those things, if possible and if available, it needs to be in the home so that people can use them. And then if it's an owner occupied, you just need to keep in mind that you'll be needing to do those things before you leave once there's a showing. So just keep that in mind. Like Nima said, it's a personal question if you're owner occupied, but I mean, I've been doing this a lot lately, and you know, you just get into your stride. You get used to doing the wipe down, and it's just something that you need to keep in mind. So that's how you prep a home for a showing during, you know, following these guidelines. The next question is, how can I protect myself from liability if there are people coming into my home? So there are 4 key things that we're doing here at Dwellwell, specifically here at Dwellwell, but they're following not only guidance from Tina and legal department information, but also the guidelines from the California Association of Realtors, et cetera. So the first thing that we're doing to help protect our clients from liability is posting the rules for entry. Bree, that's that visual. So this is provided from the Association of Realtors to be posted inside the home. So people coming in know that it clearly says right there, you're going in, wear a mask, socially distance, wash your hands, etc. The second thing is, Dwellwell, we are providing our own COVID viewing guidelines, which we're posting inside the home as well. The reason why that one's important and different is because the lawyers included language that it's hold harmless language. So that's another level of protection for you as a seller. Then thirdly, this is all recent as well. I think it was released just this week. They released, the Association of Realtors released best practices. This is a long name, so I wrote it down. Best practices, guidelines, and prevention plan for showings during COVID now that we're in stage 2. So stage 2 has slightly different rules than when we were in total lockdown, but those are to be posted in the MLS and uploaded into the MLS. So you see a trend here, post it in the house, post it online, post it wherever, so that no matter what avenue of information they're receiving it, they're getting it somewhere, right? It's protecting you from liability in a lot of different ways. And then lastly, we've talked about this a little bit, but we're calling it the PED form, but it's the Property Entry Advisory. And I'm going to tell you just a high level of what's in this form because I think it's really, really important. But first, I'm going to tell you who needs to sign it. Everyone needs to sign it. Anyone and everyone entering the home. So seller, appraiser, buyer, yes, you the seller, and the appraiser, and the buyer, and even the inspector, anyone. I made this joke because I feel like I'm the PED police, and I had to even track down the handyman's girlfriend for one of my listings because she brought him lunch and he entered the property. So we need to make sure that anyone going in signs this form because that's the safest way to protect you from liability. And we don't want you to be the first example, right? We need to make sure that you're completely covered. So what's included in this form is kind of long, so I'll just give you the gist of it. First of all, that whoever signs this understands that you may be exposed by going into these homes. Like you realize that you're putting yourself in that situation. Secondly, you're stating clearly that to the best of your knowledge, you don't have COVID, you haven't been exposed to COVID, and you're not experiencing any symptoms. So that's also crucial because if someone's experiencing symptoms, we need them to let us know so that you don't go into the home. And then that you agree as the person signing this, going into the home, that you're going to follow the guidelines from that previous graphic. You're gonna adhere to the rules of washing your hands, wearing a mask, etc. And that one, thank you, Bree. And that you are going to follow all the federal, state, and local guidelines. So those are changing often too. So by signing this form and saying that you agree to follow them, if they happen to change by the time you go into the home, you're just covered from a liability standpoint as the seller that they agreed to follow those rules, even if they happen to be shifting. And then lastly, and most importantly, that person assumes the risk. So you, the seller, me, the agent, the brokerage, we're not, liable in the sense that you're signing off saying that you know that there's a risk. So I think that's probably one of the key things, signing off on the PED. Everyone should sign it.
I'm impressed, Carol, that you tracked down the handyman's girlfriend. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. So what does
I have another one.
Yeah,
I missed number 4.
What does the process look like, and how is it different?
So the process is totally different, right? Because everything is different. But I'm just going to kind of give you an idea of how it's changed from what we used to expect. So right now, based on all those guidelines, it's a long document. So I'll give you the cliff notes of it. No more flyers. So anything that's paper, marketing materials like that are not allowed anymore. So what we've done here at really well, I think, is shifting to virtual, as we can see right now, right? You have to adapt because the buyers can't take that paper anymore. So you need to make it available to them virtually. So no more flyers or printed materials in the home. And then all the showings are by appointment only. So we used to, at least here at Dwell, have this big hype, a big event, open house, no showings until the open house, and have all these people coming in and create this whole vibe and buzz about this new listing. Well, we can't have all these people coming in to the home at the same time during a pandemic. So it now has to be by appointment and one showing party at a time. So that's going to be different in the sense that, as I mentioned, there's quite a bit entailed in cleaning before and after. So you have to space out those appointments accordingly so that you have enough time and there's no overlap. You can't just feed through it and have, vacant on lockbox and have 20 people show it in one day. You really have to make sure that you follow those cleaning guidelines. So, but if you think about it, a buyer has to get their agent to sign get them to sign the PED form, schedule an appointment, go over there. So it's not going to be a huge, probably, in Bonita, probably it will be, but it used to be like a huge, list of an update from my showing appointments would be, my weekly update would be all these different showings, maybe 20, 30 showings and all this feedback. Well, maybe now it might be 5 showings, but we already got 2 offers. So the expectation also needs to shift in the sense that it's not going to be a bunch of people coming in and out anymore, but the people that are in there are really, really solid, qualified people that actually should be inside the home. And then the other thing that's different is inspectors are also going in by themselves a lot of the time. So we need to kind of be mindful that they're not going to review the inspection report until they get it. And that's the first time they're going to talk to the inspector. So we may need to be a little bit more patient on how fast we get the request for repairs because they didn't get to go in and do the full review in person often with the inspector. So patience is what I've had to learn sometimes when it comes to this sort of thing. And then the other thing is the appraisers are also going in by themselves. So we as listing agents used to meet with them in person. Well, now we email them and talk to them over the phone. So that's all just a little bit shifted. A lot of us were already adopting doing all the documents in the contract electronically, but for those of you that like that paper, now it has to be that you learn how to click through the DocuSign, unfortunately, but I think it'll save you a lot of time.
Thank you, Carol. I think you really covered all that. I had something to add, but I think then you got to it. So,
I have something to add, and one is that silver lining, really, as Caro said, is that you're limiting all of the looky-loos, all the the nosy neighbors coming into your home. You're really eliminating all of that, and you're really only getting qualified buyers who are genuinely interested in the property. Hence why the offers are coming in so quickly, because it's just a really motivated buyer who's actually attending the showing versus everyone and their mother who's just interested in looking at property. These guys are really looking to purchase. So that's a real silver lining in the, or the other side of the coin. So it's a positive side effect of the new process.
Well, Miguel, while you're on, the next question actually is kind of you and me kind of tag teaming on it, and it's going to be under the escrow and contracts section. And it was, is it true transactions are taking longer to close?
I haven't experienced that yet on my personal deals. They have not taken longer. As I mentioned earlier, some deals are falling apart in the initial stages of the pandemic. I know personally, I lost quite a few deals because the buyer lost their job or they were furloughed. But that's really it's been mitigated quite a bit. I haven't experienced that at all over the last the last month and a half or so. And I am seeing an expedited relatively speaking, process in closing escrow. So I have not experienced delays.
I think the question came from when we first entered COVID, and we were non-essential and everything was up in the air. Appraisers didn't know they could even go in. Lenders were trying to adjust to being at home. I mean, nobody knew what we were doing. And I think that did cause some delays with properties that were already in escrow because everything was just sort of stopped. But now I think it's absolutely the opposite. And we heard from Carol, I think earlier, about the 21-day close. Now that buyers know, in fact, often now, even to make an appointment to see a home, listing agents are requiring a pre-approval, even to go in and look. Now we've got the buyers, most of our buyers are so far down the track with the lender, all of their documents are in, they're ready to go. So now we're doing 21-day closes. So if anything, they're not taking longer, they can be shorter.
Yeah, well, part of the issue in the beginning too was a lot of lending entities were not prepared to go virtual.
Right.
Most realtors, over the last 10 years, we've been pretty virtual. We've been using Zoom and Skype and FaceTime, DocuSign for a decade now. So, and lenders haven't. Lenders are used to being in the office, and they have to by certain guidelines that they needed to prepare for security purposes when they're logging into virtual private networks. So part of the delay in the beginning was that our lenders, and this is industry wide, they were preparing. They weren't prepared to go virtual or to go remote and allow people to work from home. So they had to take additional measures to make sure that the files were secure and so forth. But as of now, they're at their top of their game, and they have gone remote and have mastered it. So that's really shortened the time frames. But in the beginning, yes, there were delays, and a lot of it had to do with that too. That the lenders were just not prepared to go remote.
Okay, you threw me a bone by saying that we've been doing Zoom for 10 years. It just feels like 10 years.
Well, we've been doing DocuSign, gosh, since 2007. So we've been at this game for a while. The realtors, I'm gonna give our industry props for that. We've been mobile, agile, and remote for a very, very long time. So we were really, really built for this pandemic. So we're used to all of this technology and used to being virtual and remote and working from wherever we need to work. So really, realtors, we're fortified, and again, I'm going to say it again, we're built for this.
Well, and here's another one for you, Miguel. How do I make sure the buyer isn't going to use COVID as an excuse to back out or extend? This one definitely came from early in COVID because we did a lot of this.
I'm going to be careful how I answer that because I'm not an attorney. So there is a force majeure clause, right? So it's like a catastrophe clauses in a lot of contracts, right? So when there's a natural catastrophe or like what do they call those, a God event, so to speak.
Act of God.
Yeah, an act of God. So this is considered one of those as well. So there is a force majeure clause that we're using for buyers and for sellers too, because some of the COVID impacts to industry, for business owners, for employees, really impede them from continuing through escrow. So there is a legal clause there that can allow for an exit. But I'm not an attorney, So I neither confirm nor deny that, but but we do have to be vigilant of force majeure. Now, in order for that to apply, my understanding is that there has to be solid evidence and proof that they were impacted. They can't just say, hey, I'm impacted. They have to prove with documentation that there's been a loss of job or some severe economic impact or crisis in their livelihood and life that really does physically impact their ability to close escrow. So it's not an objection, it has to be an actual condition that they can no longer proceed. So there does have to be documentation and proof to be able to use that clause.
And both of those are our CAR forms that we use day in and day out. That force majeure is added into the purchase agreement through the CAA form. Otherwise, it's not there. And then the documentation document, I want to say, is called the PUU, which cracks me up. But it's the document for unforeseen circumstances that you attach to the documentation that Miguel is mentioning. So we do have now documents prepared by CAR attorneys that can be added to our contracts agreement between buyer and seller. They don't just automatically show up in our contracts. And we certainly prefer for our seller clients that these are not in the contract, because it does tend to protect buyers better than sellers. But if you've got a good buyer and they just want to make darn sure that if something crazy happens and Qualcomm lets go some people, they're protected, it's a good thing to do. We're in unprecedented times. So that's kind of my take on it. We're now in our very last section, and that is, how do I market a home? And this kind of comes down to, if you've made the decision that, yeah, you know, I really do want to make a move. I'm interested in living in a house that has a bigger garden, or now really is the time to downsize, whatever it may be. This is also all different and the same. How do I market a home? And the first question that comes up, do we have to host open houses? This is so funny, because before COVID, it was, are you an agent that will do an open house? And now it's, do we have to have open houses? And the best practices guidelines are for no open houses, because we do not want to have an unlimited number of people that we don't know into the home. And I think this is actually a practice that will continue long after COVID. What we do now is host virtual open houses. I did one last week live. We also are using the Matterports. That's the 3D technology that goes in every listing, and also a property walkthrough tour, which is how I did. Actually, Bree is our cinematographer here, but this is how I did my live virtual open house, was narrating the walkthrough on Facebook Live, showing a property. And what this does, I think, and why we have fewer buyers looking at each home, but yet more offers, is a buyer now has the opportunity to virtually really tour a home. This is not just a random list that, or not random list, but this is not a casual list that was compiled off of Zillow or off of the MLS of homes that might work. These are now homes that a buyer has really looked at. It does have the right number of bedrooms. It is light and bright. It does have the laundry room. Oh, it's not out in the garage, or all of the different features, whatever it may be. Buyers can now actually see this home. So when they do make an appointment, it's actually a contender. It's a real contender, which I think we all really like. So I've kind of covered, we don't do the open houses anymore. We're making appointments. And how do we show a home virtually? I actually already covered that too, with doing both the walkthrough tour and this 3D Matterport. Actually, both types of technology are in the listings. So an agent can see this, a client can see this. They are syndicated all over the place, so that a buyer can actually see the home very, very well and very, very thoroughly without setting foot in a home. And we are definitely seeing all across California and the country a much higher instance of people buying homes 100% virtually, never setting foot in the home until they actually take possession. This used to be such a one-off. I think I had only done it once in my 30-year career before, and now this is becoming really, really common. So I think this is, again, a step forward for us with technology and a step forward for buyers getting comfortable with technology, that what they're seeing is a real representation. It's not a photo that's been doctored to the point of irrecognizable. It's not an irrecognizable home with wide angle lens and all these things that change it to the point where it's not even believable anymore. We're now actually showing homes in their real state. And I think that's really a step forward. Anybody else want to add on to that?
This is great technology. Again, our industry, we've been using it for quite a few years now, Matterports and virtual tours. Now it's just become more prevalent and adopted. And this is really great for our service personnel who are PCSing into San Diego and oftentimes don't have the opportunity to actually visit San Diego in person to actually house shop. Now they can actually, from the current base that they're stationed in, can actually tour the house and give the thumbs up with a little bit more certainty to their realtor and say, yes, I want that one, let's offer on it.
And then our last question, I didn't mean to run over this one, Caro, but if you'd take it in more detail, can we be more selective regarding who enters my home?
Yep. And I think the answer to that one is that that's happening automatically because, well, first of all, you have to be by appointment. You can't just stumble upon an open house anymore. You have to have an agent already that allows you to sign a PED form that sends it to the other agent. So already the pool of people going is someone that has an agent at the minimum, but there are other things that you can do as a seller, which I've actually done recently with some listings, is you can request that they look at the virtual walkthrough and the 3D Matterport prior to scheduling. And you can request that with the appointment and the PED form, they also provide you pre-approval, and people are actually sending them because that's, well, it's on one of the forms, first of all, but also because that's becoming a little bit more of, you know, the practice, especially in a seller's market. You're able to ask for those things and people are sending them. So if they're sending a pre-approval, they have an agent, they signed the PED form, and they came all the way out to the home, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, that's already been way, way, way selected down to the people that really should be going.
So Bree, we're now in our last question. Do we have any that have come in either through Facebook or in the chat? I don't see any in the chat.
Nope, I don't think we have any that have come through. Let me double check Facebook one more time just to be sure. But we do have one question about rentals left that can be answered here. Oh geez, hold on.
That one was
yeah. Yep.
So the question is, are renters still paying? If not, how are we holding them accountable? A lot of tenants who weren't paying before, once this first started, can pay now. Thankfully, due to a lot of people receiving the stimulus check, and a lot of people are already receiving their unemployment monies, which is really great. If you have a tenant that is claiming they cannot pay, there's a couple steps that they have to abide by. The first is they have to notify you a week before the rent is due that they cannot pay and what the reason is. Within that week from when from when they notify you that they can't pay, they have to explain what the hardship is. There is a form called the COVID-19 hardship consideration form, and I think that we have a copy of that. If we do, it's going to be put up on the screen. And there it is. So it's basically for them stating that they will have to pay this rent at some time. It's not forgiven due to COVID. They have to prove what the hardship is that they can't pay. Did they lose their job due to COVID? Did they get their hours cut? Do they have additional medical expenses? Are they sick? Are they taking care of someone else that's sick? I highly recommend that you provide them with this form, and they have to provide you with proof, with actual proof of what they're claiming. On that form that you can see you guys are going to come up with a payment plan. For now, what we see is that they have until September to pay that amount, or when the City of San Diego eviction moratorium is lifted. That currently lasts till June 30th. As it is right now, it could be extended, we don't know. But as of right now, they either have until September to pay that, or once this moratorium is lifted. One big thing that this moratorium requires is that you as the owner, or us who are managing your properties, we are prohibited from collecting late fees, serving eviction notices, or starting eviction actions. We cannot do that. If for some reason you have a second thought about it, I highly recommend connecting with an attorney, and they can provide better information regarding that. But from reviewing the moratorium, please do not try and collect late fees or serve an eviction notice. They will not go through. If you guys have any questions regarding renting, a lot of my properties that I have are renting pretty quickly. Just like in sales, the more luxury market we see is kind of at a standstill. So if you have a vacant unit, or you want some more information about tenant non-payment, or if you'd like a copy of this hardship form, definitely reach out to us, pick our brains. We could send you a copy of this form and kind of help you deal with any questions or problems that you're having with your investment properties.
Well, thank you. So anything at all? Do you think there's anything that we didn't touch on? Did anybody on the panel have something to add? Were we gonna, oh no, we already answered it, never mind.
I was going to say one thing real quick. Just thinking about the scenario in which someone is selling their property and buying another one, as great of a market as it is for sellers right now, it can be very challenging on the buying side. So that's, there's multiple strategies with dealing for that scenario. And I would say that, definitely consult one of us, and we can go through your individual situation, figure out what the best method is for you, because some markets, low inventory, you can sell your home, but buying your home when there's low inventory, you may be waiting a while. So definitely let's talk about that.
Well, great. Well, we are exactly on time, team. It is 5:01, and I think our Q&A, I think we've covered everything that we intended to. So I hope everybody that sees this gets something out of it. And thank you all on the panel for doing this tonight. Now it's time for happy hour to really start. Anyway, I'm going to turn off the recording, and let's sign off.
Thank you.
Happy selling.
Thank you.
Everybody.